okay, I have a question that if I put it in simple words, why do we see that Muslims today are ashamed of their identity? Just to quote some examples, that they don't want to dress in Sunnah. Okay, it's just an example. Uh, they try to resemble Western society more than the Islamic way, and they relate that Islamic dressing to, I think, Maulvis or the masjid imams, but not with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. What is that makes us ashamed of our identity?
It's called the harmony principle. We are hardwired to have a harmony in the planet, in the community, in the house, inside any circle that we belong to. We have a natural mental disposition to make sure that the harmony does not break. So whatever is going on at the alpha level, which means whoever we look up to, for whatever reason, could be good reasons as well, or whatever is going on before we even started to look up to people. Whoever my father was looking up to, and he actually, when I grew up, I just saw him dressing up the way he was dressing. So I was looking up to my father, not the alpha, because he was my alpha at that time. So what I'm saying is, I'm not going to confuse people with alpha. What I'm saying is, whoever is looked up by most of the people, whatever society, culture, dress code, that becomes the code. That's called the harmony principle. We actually want to harmonize with that code. Now, the current masjid's imam is now also not dressing up in the dress of the Sunnah, because there is no dress of Islam, there is a dress code of Islam. So if you're fulfilling that dress code, we're good. But the love of Prophet ﷺ actually required us to dress literally like the Prophet ﷺ. And the only people who can come close to it right now are the Arabs. And the Arabs are, when we look at them, we think that it's a cultural thing. So Prophet ﷺ was dressed in the Arabian culture. And it's okay if we don't dress up in the Arabian culture because we have a dress code. We're covering our body, and that's the dress code. But I know your question is not about the dress code. Your question is about calling ourselves Muslims and praying in public, and the way we believe. We tend to shy away from telling people of what we actually believe in, and that's because of the harmony principle. And that's why I'm against any other system other than the system of Allah in the planet, because human beings are going to try and harmonize with the human beings are naturally going to harmonize with the current system of wherever they're born into. And if it's not the system of Allah, then people are going to harmonize with whatever the system of man is. And that's why the recurrence of the prophets on the planet comes into place, because they just come in to remind that, why are you harmonizing with human beings based system? You have to harmonize with God based system, and this is a book for it. This is the code for it. And once most people are in there, or actually the people who actually matter are in there, which means people of power or influence, then the rest of the people naturally harmonize with that group. And that's why we need to create that group of people who people look up to, the actual celebrities. So I'm going to give you an example. If Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and whoever started dressing up in the Arabian dress and started growing beards, everybody would be growing beards. And at that time, Muslims would be like, yeah, you know what, I'm a Muslim and that's why I have a beard. He would not have a hard time explaining his beard. Right now, since it's not the code, he has a hard time because he is the odd man out. He's the guy who's breaking the harmony. So that's a natural pressure on any human mind. It's not just Muslim human minds. When Islam was prevalent on the planet, the people who used to come to this part of the world, they used to have the same pressure. It's a minority pressure. Every minority has it, because they cannot harmonize with whatever is going on. Why do you think Christians say Allah in Pakistan? They don't believe in this word. They believe in a totally different God, right? But they say it because it harmonizes with them. You know what? I don't want to look odd because but whoever you're calling Allah, I also call him Yesu. So they just keep saying Allah to harmonize. They are saying Inshallah to harmonize. They don't. This is not their way of life or way of this is not their psychology to actually believe in this sort of expressions. So it's a basic harmony that human beings are designed to. That's a chemical called serotonin. It actually gets the circle moving, and that circle has to have a singular center, and that is always going to be a singular center. This is the signature of God, to have a center and a circle revolving around it. And that's the harmony principle. People revolve around a single center. That center is the alpha. Whoever is the alpha, people are going to revolve around that. So when Aristotle was the alpha, people were, or his philosophy, people started revolving around that. When anyone or any group declares their power or influence of the other people, the rest of the world starts to revolve around those. And that's where the symbol of Islam, the Kaaba, and all the signature, our fingerprints, and the galaxies, where singular nucleus and all the orbits come into place. This is exactly what our design is. So when we are harmonizing with anyone but the Prophet ﷺ, that means we're not Muslims by philosophy and by psychology. As soon as we are harmonizing with our Prophet ﷺ, we will not have a hard time admitting of what our belief in, the way we are and the way we think and the way we act or behave. But we have to do that because we're not grounded with that alpha in our systems. So whoever says that he's a Muslim and he loves the Prophet ﷺ and loves everything other than the Sunnah, he does not know his psychology. He's not introspected himself enough that my center is not the Prophet ﷺ or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My center is something else. That's why I'm doing whatever I'm doing, because we're just copying. I'm wearing somebody else's Xerox. I'm actually trying. You think when I look in the mirror, I see that this is what the Prophet ﷺ used to look like? No. That I'm harmonizing with somebody else, unconsciously and even consciously. Could be Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, or whoever. It doesn't matter who, but it's not the Prophet ﷺ. And as soon as a human being starts to think deeply, he's going to see that, yeah, okay, all of a sudden I'm trying to grow the beard, and I'm very comfortable with it. My hair is growing long, I'm comfortable with it. And he's naturally in the rhythm of the Prophet ﷺ, around the Prophet ﷺ, which is leading to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because center is Allah and the system of Allah. So this is what the Kaaba represented from day one. The first thing on the planet of how the people are going to come in the group and behave was the Kaaba. There was no other symbol for the group behavior. So this is when you see the Kaaba and you see the galaxy and you see our fingerprints, you see the same signature. Even if you break up a leaf and you go inside the molecule, you see the same thing. Single center with things revolving around it. That's the harmony. And that's where the oneness concept actually comes from. The Tawheed concept of what do you mean by Tawheed? Tawheed means a singular center, which is Allah, and harmonizing around Him according to the principles and the stipulations and the commandments and whatever is going to get you closer. And the more you're like Him, the inner orbit you go into. The innermost orbits are the prophets, and then the whole descending order of how close you are, because the closer you are to the nucleus, you see what it looks like, and you can obey it better. So we went from the inner orbit, we started going further and further away, so further away that some other nucleus started attracting us, and we are revolving around that. And this is exactly how molecules and atoms behave. They actually get attracted by some other energy, some other attribute of some other nucleus, and then they first change their orbits, and then they migrate from their nucleus to some other nucleus. We are revolving around some nucleus. Doesn't matter which nucleus, but we are revolving around it. It is us who's going to find out the center of what I'm revolving around if I look deeply into myself.
Okay, I got your point, especially the example you gave about nucleus in the end. So that means we've been drawn away from Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's identity. We don't know about his personality. So what if I ask you, what should we, how can we put the love of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and make him as a hero for our children? What do we have to do? Because we see that our children, their heroes are Stephen Hawkins, scientists, Einstein, and they think there's something big. How can we, put the love of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in our children for our next generation? How can we do that?
Two things here. We are confusing love and honor. When we say Hawkins or Dawkins or Einsteins or Newtons, that's not love. Our kids don't love Einstein. And even if they say it, they don't mean it. They don't love the Cristiano Ronaldo when they're wearing his t-shirt. They're fascinated by him. That's a totally different chemical. Love is a totally different chemical, different chemistry. It is triggered differently. It moves differently. It moves the human being differently. And honor is a totally different chemical. It moves the human beings differently. It is set up differently. Honor and heroism is serotonin, and love is oxytocin. We have a totally different setup when it comes down to love and honor. We have to do both for the Prophet ﷺ. But what we do is we confuse honor and we start saying that Prophet ﷺ should be our hero, and then start attributing all the elements of love around that concept. It is not going to happen. People are not going to fall in love with the Prophet ﷺ just because we honor him. We have to honor him as the number one person on the planet, the biggest hero that ever was and wherever is going to be. But in order to make people and kids love him, fall in love with him, and actually we have to make them feel a totally different chemistry. And that's the chemistry of love and affection and sacrifice. And that is the psychology of love. The psychology of love is sacrifice. If you look a little deeper inside love, and you'll find that it is made up from, it is begotten by the element of sacrifice. That's the psychology of love. But you can love someone who you do not honor. You love your kids. You don't honor your kids. They're not your heroes. You love your kids. So that means it's a totally different ballgame. We need to set up all the attributes of love separately. The stories of love should be told separately. Stories of sacrifice of the Prophet ﷺ should be told separately. And every story should be told. Our kids better know every single thing about the Prophet ﷺ in terms of how to structure the concept of love around him. You have to understand what this man was doing, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for the ummah. You have to understand what he actually did in the scale of what your mother and father did for you. And then you'll find out that your mother and father, my mother and father, didn't do anything compared to what the Prophet ﷺ did for us. And that's irrelevant of how big of a hero he was. It is only relevant, should be made to be relevant solely by the concept of love. I'm going to give you a little example so that you can understand. Let me tell you the exact same story, that a guy comes to your neighborhood and he's trying to get you to preach to you of what you're doing wrong and how you should do things right. And all of a sudden, all of the neighborhood goes to their rooftops and starts throwing stones at this guy. Just another guy. I'm just telling you a story. And this guy, instead of cursing you guys, he starts praying for you guys. And he's bleeding and he's hurting. And he's just keep on trying to get you to the best possible place, not just in this world, but when you're gonna die. Now you know this story, but if I tell you that your father went to a neighborhood to meet his friend, just to help his friend, and all of the neighborhood started stoning him, all of a sudden you'll feel the story differently, because now this is your father I'm talking about. You will start feeling angry at the people who are doing this. If we tell the story of Taif to the kids of Islam, they don't feel anger, they feel sympathy. But when I tell you that your father was there, or your brother, or your mother was there, most of all your mother, and people were beating your mother and stoning her, you're not going to feel sympathy for your mother. You're going to feel all of the emotions that are possible because you actually love your mother. And this is not a story of honor. This is a story of love. And we actually have to admit that we don't even know the Prophet ﷺ, let alone love him. You have to know the person to love him. We do not know anything. If anything, we should admit to ourselves that we don't actually love him. We honor him. That's for sure. But the concept of love is a stipulation, an article of our faith. We are not Muslims if we don't love the Prophet ﷺ. We could be Muslims, and I know we're not going to be, if we did not honor him. But we cannot be Muslims if we do not love him. Of course, we're not going to be Muslims if we don't honor him. But there is no stipulation that says that. The stipulation, what it says is that you have to love the Prophet ﷺ, Allah and the Prophet ﷺ, more than you love your kids and your mother and your father. The Prophet ﷺ knew that we don't honor our kids. But he said you have to love Allah and His Rasul more than you love your mother and your father, your wife and your kids. So it's irrelevant of the honor. I know no Muslim can be a Muslim, he does not honor the Prophet ﷺ. It's not at all up for discussion. What I'm saying is, it is irrelevant of the honor. This love concept is so big, we just never ever get, forget the word emphasis. We don't even talk about this. We just say it, and love cannot come through lecturing. We cannot just say, my son, you'll have to love the Prophet ﷺ, and all of a sudden he's going to fall in love with the Prophet ﷺ. No, you'll have to build the love. You literally have to construct the whole picture. You define the rules of the game and tell him how this man was playing this game so big and so well, nobody else can. Like your mother is playing that game. She's giving everything she's got, and still she can't even come close. Because if I ask you, are you in love with your son or your daughter? Your obvious answer is going to be yes. But are you in love with his son or his daughter? You'll be like, yeah, in a way. And then I'm going to ask you, are you in love with your great-great-great-grandson and great-great-great-granddaughter? The obvious answer is no. But look at the personality of the Prophet ﷺ, the core of the Prophet ﷺ, that he was in love with me, Sahil Ladim. He was actually in love with me. He was doing everything for the last man till the day of Qiyamah. As soon as Allah Ta'ala used to give anything, He used to give it to this ummati. Not Sahabi, ummati. So much so that He said to His companion once that you are my companions. My brothers are going to come in the end of times. My brothers. He was connected to the last man who's going to be born in the day before the day of Qiyamah. And I'm just giving you a little glimpse. We need to structure this pyramid of love and put every child in front of the pyramid and make him understand what kind of bricks construct this pyramid and how nobody else can achieve this. I mean, we look at a lot of philanthropists and we think, such a great man. Yes, they are great people. Can you even compare? And this is the same story I'm talking about. In that same story, you can't even compare the greatest of the greatest philanthropists and just one man, because these philanthropists are doing whatever they're looking at. The Prophet ﷺ was doing for the people who nobody could possibly even foresee. And I'm not talking about just Muslim people. We all know that Prophet ﷺ knocked the door of Abu Jahl more than 600 times just so that he can come to the truth and he can be saved. This was not a battle of argument. There was no manazara going on. This was an effort. Manazara is done once. You win or lose. Or maybe you declare. And a lot of manazaras did happen. The arguments did happen. This was just a symbol of how much love this man had. And we can only talk about this. I wish we could actually show our Prophet to our kids of how he was doing all of this out of pure love and just sacrifice, just self-sacrifice all the time. Just a little window. Sacrifice is one of the many ways you're going to construct. But sacrifice has nothing to do with honor. Heroism is about difficulty and the villains. Difficult things, situations, and difficult people. That's heroism. That's not love stories. You have to tell love stories about the Prophet and create the love inside our kids so that our kids can understand how to love, not just to Prophet ﷺ, but other people. Once they're going to understand what love is, that's what they're going to, because all they're trained, and they're really well trained on how to love their mother and father. All I'm trying to tell you is replicate that model and then put the Prophet ﷺ right in the middle of that model. We don't do that. We never ever spend time on doing that. We talk a lot about the stories of honor so that the kids can honor our Prophet ﷺ. But we never construct a story. And those stories, by the way, we don't even construct. We just narrate those stories of all the ghazwas and all of that. We never talk about stories of how kids can understand what love, the concept of love is, and what is the concept of loving the Prophet ﷺ. And this is our base article of faith. And most of the human beings, Muslims say that this is an article of faith. And love is the article of faith, loving Allah and the Prophet ﷺ. But what they do is they scare Muslims from Allah. They do not make Muslims fall in love with Allah. Every Muslim is scared of Allah. Nobody loves Allah. Let's admit it. We don't love Allah because we don't even know what love is. We do not even come close to understanding what the love of the Prophet ﷺ is. Once we know the story of God, that's when we're going to understand the love for God. And that's where the story of the Prophet ﷺ is going to fit better. There is no heroes and villains in the story of love. Heroes and villains are in the stories of honor. So understand how the psychology is tuned in and how chemistry dials into the bigger concept of philosophy when we're going to raise our kids, specifically Muslim kids.